Interference with child custody, Texas Penal Code 2503, is a state jail felony. It's a criminal offense, which means it goes to a criminal court. Today, this video is for law enforcement, district attorneys, and parents. We're just going to talk a little bit about interference with child custody, Texas Penal Code 2503, some of the myths, some of the things you hear about interference with child custody, the rights, the wrongs, the indifferences. I'm just here to tell you the truth. One goes to criminal court, the other one goes to civil court. Now let's figure it out. When it comes to interference with child custody, you have really three mechanisms of relief. And so interference with child custody, Texas Penal Code 2503, when a person knows that the person's taking or retention is in violation of a court order or judgment, including temporary orders, is a state jail felony. It goes to a criminal court. Now, if you want to enforce the child custody access and possession portion of your order, that goes to a civil court right here. Now, if you want to file a tort under the Texas Family Code 42.002, interference with possessory right, that is a third option in the civil courts. You really have three forms of relief when it comes to interfering with child custody. Is everybody on the same page? So let's talk about the criminal aspect of interference with child custody. Interference with child custody, Texas Penal Code 2503, is in the penal code, and that is a state jail felony. If you want to enforce the possession and access child custody orders, you can enforce that by civil and criminal contempt on the civil side, in the civil courts. Now, a lot of law enforcement officers will tell you you need to take the infraction of interference with child custody to a civil court where they'll hold them in civil and criminal contempt, and then they'll go and pick up on the felony, which is incorrect. Criminal cases go to criminal courts, civil cases go to civil court. Are we understanding? So when they tell you take this back to your civil court, they're mandating that you hire an attorney or represent yourself, in which judges and attorneys don't like you if you represent yourself. Okay, so you have to pony up $5,000 to do an enforcement action. Cops are making you spend $5,000 when you have a perfectly good order to enforce your child custody orders. Now let's ask, why do you think there's three mechanisms of relief for interference with child custody? Because interference with child custody, you are a parent. You have a fundamental right to your child with a court order that's already been deemed in the best interest of your child. Law enforcement mandating you hire an attorney, take it back to court, only fuels the legal industry. It only fuels attorneys. It only pads their pocket. It only makes them money when you have a perfectly good order. So you actually have three forms of relief in which you can enforce that order. Now, parents that don't have money to hire an attorney, only relief they have is the criminal relief. And some parents don't want to modify the order. They just want to see their children. Now, it being a felony carries heavy consequences. A felony shall be forthwith before a magistrate of the county. All of this, we know judges aren't enforcing their court orders. We know judges aren't enforcing the law on the civil side. So a lot of parents have dedicated time into perfecting how to enforce a child custody order on the criminal side, because not every parent needs to come out of pocket $5,000 for an attorney to enforce a perfectly good court order. So there's three forms of relief. Interference with child custody, Texas Penal Code 2503, which is a state jail felony, which the state will pick up the charges. A prosecutor will prosecute this, ultimately saving you money if you don't have it, right? But they want to mandate you go and hire their attorneys to take it to court, and then you have to gamble. Is this judge going to enforce the order? is this judge going to enforce the law? And many times, these parents get slaps on the wrist for interfering with your child custody. And a lot of parents like myself, we got tired of it. One, I got tired of throwing money at attorneys and they couldn't execute a simple possession and access violation. Another problem we have is that law enforcement isn't giving parents the reports needed to hold the other parent in contempt. So there's a whole bunch of issues going around here. Now, every DA you talk to will say, well, we need to get law enforcement to send us the court order. No district attorney, no assistant district attorney will ever tell you they are not going to prosecute a felony. That's negligence. That's in the Code of Criminal Procedure, Chapter 2. But law enforcement will kick it over to the DA and say the DA doesn't take these charges. The DA kicks the can back over and says, we need law enforcement to write these violations of the penal code and send them to us before we can act on them. So they kick the can back and forth. In our advocacy, we've been able to nail down a couple DAs, and DAs have consistently said they cannot file charges for the parent. It's got to come through a law enforcement agency. And two, they can't tell a law enforcement agency not to report a felony because it's in the law. It's in the penal code, failure to report a felony. So a lot of these officers, they use policy and procedure in which their local department will tell them the DA says they don't take these charges. There's no written or verbal policy that is out there that will tell a law enforcement officer who's supposed to be upholding the law not to report a felony. So a lot of these officers, they don't want to get involved. But unfortunately, their duty is to serve and protect. I don't know. They put it on their cars. It's not up to me. But I can tell you this. By state law, they're supposed to report a felony because a felony goes before a magistrate of the county. And so this is why I make these videos, because there's a difference. And a lot of parents don't understand the difference between a criminal court and a civil court. Criminal court, assaults, burglary, drugs, prostitution, interference with child custody, it all goes there. Civil court, it's when you want to sue somebody because they did you wrong. I suggest that you really keep pushing on district attorneys and law enforcement to prosecute interference with child custody, because where we're at now, a lot of parents don't have the financial resources to keep going back to court to see their children, and nobody wants to uphold these court orders. Court orders were already deemed in the best interest of that child. So how come nobody's enforcing these child custody orders? I hope you were following and I was able to educate you on some of the things that we've learned. Follow more for more tips.